Okay, Sistas fans, so we had season 9, episode 3, entitled Having Faith. And if you follow me on Twitter, and especially if you tuned into the live stream I did directly after the episode, you know that for the most part, I enjoyed the episode, but I ain't going to hold you. Those first 10 minutes were rough because Sabrina Hollins was working my last effing nerve. And low key around like the 9:27 mark, I'm like, I'm going to wind up giving this episode like a 5 or a 6 because I just couldn't take it. But thankfully, they pulled through, and this episode had the stupendous outweighed the negative. So because of that, and I know some people gave the episode a 10 out of 10, but unfortunately, I had to take the episode for a whole and for everything that comprises the 40-something minute runtime. I'm giving it a solid 8 out of 10. Dang it, Sabrina, you just had to F it up. It was so close to a perfect score. Granted, I know that this episode needed the comedic moments, and they were played out very well. Mignon and especially Deval, they brought it. But the whole rich crap, it was completely unneeded, completely unnecessary, and it just killed the momentum of an otherwise stupendous episode. So before going further into the review, please take a moment to like the video. Follow me on social media. Links are in the description. Hit that bell icon and select all. That way you know when I post content, and go live directly after the episode to discuss the episode. And most importantly, please subscribe. August 29th, I turn 34. It would be amazing if I can hit 300,000 subscribers either on that day or before my birthday. Make it happen. So, first things first, if you recall, every week I've been doing videos breaking down articles that BET themselves make public for whatever reason. They will drop, BET drops an episode like, hey, here's season 9, episode 2. And then the next day on Thursday, they will drop an article detailing the events of the next episode a week in advance. So there was an episode article last week, and there were some details specifically towards the end that didn't match up. It did say, Karen would end the episode in sorrow over losing one baby, but then holding her remaining baby named Faith. However, that was wrong. She held the baby that did pass away as a stillborn, and instead of Faith, she named the baby Forever. Forever Taylor was the name of the child. So there you go. And also, before I get into the review, a lot of people are like, how did they know it was Zach's baby? Okay, it was stated in the episode a couple of times that once the babies were born, specifically the stillborn, an immediate test will be done to determine which baby via baby daddy passed away. And that's how they knew instantly. That's how they knew. I wanted to get that out the way because I know a lot of people would ask. It was stated in the episode. And look, if you missed it, I don't blame you. There are times where I F up and I don't catch something that is blatantly obvious. And trust and believe, you let me know that. But yeah, they did confirm in the episode they were going to take a test, and they did. That is how Zach is aware that his baby is the one that passed away. So, I think that they are going to stick to these results. I don't think that sometime later in the season they're going to pull a whoopsie daisy and go, actually, it was Aaron's baby that didn't make it, not Zach's baby. No, I don't think they're going to do that. But then again, with the treatment Karen was getting, I would not put it past some of these half-assed doctors and nurses. But at this point, she did seem to have the best care possible. So yeah, I am going to go out on a limb here and say, no, the tests were not inaccurate. So the episode starts with Sabrina and Andy panicking, calling out for help, screaming. Two things. One, why didn't either one of them just run out of the room to get its help? And two, isn't there like a panic button or something on the side of the bed, for the patient to hit to like call a nurse or something? But then again, to be fair, given the lackluster attention in medical care, screaming and or running out into the hallway to find a nurse probably would have been the more effective way of getting help as opposed to hitting the button. Like I said, at this point in time, based off of everything Karen has dealt with since she's been in the hospital, yeah, I do think that was more effective than hitting the button. So, Dr. Vaughn comes in, declares it a code blue, and it needs to do the emergency C-section ASAP, and they need to get the room. So basically, Sabrina and Andy got to go. This is where it started to annoy me. It's like, the doctor just said, you got to go. Why are you just standing around like deers in the headlight? And then Andy eventually gets Sabrina to leave. And then they're out in the hallway freaking out. So Danny and Fatima ask what's going on. And that's when Sabrina's like, look, Karen. It's almost like she flatlined, she passed out, and then, the doctors came in and they said they had to do an emergency C-section. They wouldn't tell us anything. And then Andy, thankfully being the level-headed one, is like, we didn't learn anything because they told us we had to go so they could begin the procedure. This fool Sabrina is all in her feelings going like, I gotta go back in there. I gotta go back in there. It's like, if you don't sit your ass down. See, the thing is, I was lenient like in the last episode, like when she came into the hospital, overheard Vaughn and Cruz talking, and then she went to the waiting room just freaking out. And I'm like, okay, not the best way to handle the situation, but I understand everybody's going to handle this kind of news differently. However, this time around, it's like, yeah, sit your dumb ass down. Like, what good is it going to do? And thankfully you had like Fatima and Andy and Danny kind of telling her like, what good is it going to do for you to go up in there? If nothing else, you're just going to be in the way. So just sit down and, like there's nothing you could do. So Fatima was like, yeah, I'll go and try to find Zach, tell him what's going on. And that's when the nurse actually comes to him as they're going to the waiting room. Actually, no, they're about to go to the waiting room, but the nurse pops up and asks, like, who's the next of kin? And then they're like, wait, what? What do you mean? And then Miss Lisa pops up, and then the nurse is like, does your daughter have, like, a medical will or, any sort of statement to let us know if we should resuscitate her if she does, flatline or anything? And Miss Lisa's freaking out, like, look, what's going on? It's like, would you give us approval to give your daughter CPR if necessary? It's like, yes, please do whatever you can. It's like, can I go back there? And it's like, no, not now. And then, obviously she's breaking down. And then that's when Fatima's like, yeah, I really need to go find Zach and let him know what's going on. So she's in there fighting for her life. That's the only thing she could tell them at this moment. So that's when Andy, one of the highlights of the episode, she rolls up to Dr. Cruz and pretty much tells him, if anything happens to my friend, you won't have a career anymore. The only job you'll get at this hospital is serving coffee. And he very coldly tells her, look, instead of wasting your time and energy on me, you need to focus on your friend. Miss Mott is no longer my concern. She's not my patient. And then he just walks off. But I love seeing Andy with this no nonsense attitude. It just goes to show how good a character she is when there's not a Gary affiliated story going on with her. Like, this is the competent lawyer we've been wanting to see for quite some time. So from there we go over to Sabrina and Danny and okay. I am going to do my best not to do like a 10-minute tangent on how much I hated this, but okay, I will be brief. So they just sit there. And on the one hand, I do like how Danny is yet again trying to calm her friend down. I love the callback to mentioning Kresha and some of the therapy techniques and whatnot, as opposed to Sabrina just worrying because what good is that going to do? They have a mini discussion about vices. And I love how, Danny did mention like, what do you think vices are for? To help calm me down. But then I have this little voice in my head, whether it be Tony or Kresha telling me, don't do this, don't do that. A smoke here or a drink there. It's like, how am I supposed to calm my nerves then? And then that's when Sabrina's like, at this point, I ought to go out to the park and like with you and, smoke some. And Danny's like, wait, girl, what's going on? That's when she mentions the rich thing. Okay. Like I said, I will try not to harp on this. Okay. She tells Danny that I walked in on him and Penelope having sex at the juice bar. And the way she recounted it, it's almost like, yeah, he was cheating. which makes zero sense because that was my initial thought watching the episode. Look, Sabrina's over here acting like she got done dirty when in fact she was the one that broke up with him, but she's omitting that from the story. Now, I actually went back to the season 8 finale, and there was the scene when she was on the phone with Danny at that moment telling her what went down with Rich and packing up his belongings at the same time to go down to the juice bar unannounced to drop off his stuff. Basically, if nothing else, solidifying that they're broken up. No doubts left. Like, this is it. And over the phone, she said, I just thought it was best for us to see other people. And breaking up with him was the right thing to do as opposed to leading him on. So she did confirm to Danny in the finale, essentially the same night they're in right now, I broke up with Rich. He didn't like it and he stormed out, but I broke up with him. Okay, so it's established they're broken up. So why the F are you mad that you caught him with another woman? Whatever. So she does mention the Tony situation and that, he's about to go to Alaska. And in a light moment of accountability, Danny was like, oh, I wouldn't want him to give up his career for me. It's like low key mentioning how she's responsible for the situation. But at the same time, she kind of backtracked like, wait, let me rephrase that. I'm like, no, Danny, go ahead. But then again, Tony was the one that signed her up for the program. But if we're being really specific, HR is just lashing out at Tony. They're the ones who effed up by terminating Danny without getting her side of the story, only listening to Leonard. But essentially, she makes it clear, like, even after Sabrina asked, are you considering going to Alaska or whatnot? And to Danny's credit, she doesn't want him to give up his job that he worked so hard for her. And then Sabrina says one of the dumbest things ever, that's actually kind of romantic. No, that's stupid. Love don't pay the bills. This man has 2 kids and an ex-wife. We don't know what the situation is, if it's like child and or spousal support. This is dumb. So, at this point, it's up in the air as to what's going to happen with them. So let me just skip to the other scene. So Rich calls. Sabrina doesn't want to answer. Danny, who's in a mood, grabs the phone and just goes in on him because this fool wants to explain himself. What the F he wants to explain, I don't know. And also, I'm like, wait, he's back in his uniform with the lights on. Like, what is he doing at the juice shop? He was closing shop. Well, actually, the shop was closed because Penelope, and Jordan were having like a celebratory night because he got out of jail. But then I thought, wait a minute, he's probably in there cleaning up after what he did with Penelope. So, yeah. And then Danny threatens to call, the health inspector anonymously with a tip about, the dirty activity he was getting down with Penelope at his shop in order to get him shut down. And I'm like, Danny, don't you think you've ruined enough black men's careers in one, month? First it was Tony, now it's Rich too. Let it be. Let it go. So she ends up hanging up and I think blocking his number. And Sabrina's just sitting there like, wow, okay. So when all's said and done, Danny looks around and notices everybody in the waiting room is looking at her. And then she snaps on them and then Sabrina sinks in her chair and then that's it. It was actually pretty funny. It was the needed levity in this episode, given the strong themes as well as the serious situation that Karen and the babies are in right now. But overall, this crap makes no sense. And I'm recording this review after I have done my trailer breakdown for episode 4 and after doing the video breaking down the BET article detailing the events of episode 4. And let me tell you, why the writers chose to extend this storyline makes zero sense. Makes zero sense. Okay, so everything else pertains to the episode has to do with the good stuff. There you go. Now, Zach is getting dressed in the scrubs and whatnot because the nurses did give him the heads up that he and Eric can go inside. But, it's not looking too good right now. And I have nothing to say for this scene other than kudos for Tima. This is the Zatima I've been missing for quite a while. I know my thoughts on like Zatima season 3 weren't popular. Not to mention, well, then again, the masses agree that the new writers didn't do the best job with Zach during season 7 and 8. And as a result, to be fair, if we're going back to like pre-writers room, the Tyler Perry wasn't really doing a spectacular job with the Zach and Fatima relationship as a whole. It just felt like something was severely off, from Fatima processing, never apologizing, to Zach just having blinders on when he's emotional about something, whether it's happy or sad, not even considering Fatima's thoughts and feelings towards things. And the list goes on, but I'm not here to rant about that. This was the perfect way of showing, hey, the dynamic these two had from the start is still there. Knowing each other, knowing when to be there for each other, when appropriate, well, actually when needed, when necessary, shows why these two are a strong couple. Despite the faults of both parties or outside opposition, these two can weather any storm so long as they go through it together. Fatima just encouraging him and, reminding him, like, look, when you get in there, don't be in the way. You know how you can get. Just take a breath. And I love Zach needed this. He needed, in the midst of everything going on, because it seems in off screen land, she did get the information about what went down in Gary's office. And, just basically take a breath after everything you've been through tonight. And then you go in there. Just keep it together. And keep the faith. And I love how Zach tried to add a little comedy in there, but it's exactly what was needed, So then we get to my favorite scene of the episode. Don't get me wrong, the final scene with Karen holding her baby was great, but this to me was my favorite. So Zach goes up to Aaron and, they're kind of gassing each other up before they go in the room. And keep in mind, Aaron got in there before Zach because Zach and Andy were on their way from the penthouse and stuck in traffic. So, Aaron has a bit more, hands-on experience seeing Karen in that delicate state. So Zach is the one to bring up, hey, you want to pray or something? It's like, yeah, that's a good idea. And I felt so bad because Aaron was praying, and you know what, we pray, we come to you to put your hands around Karen and the babies, and we know that one of them is already with you right now. And that's when he's like, you know what, because Zach's like, whoa, and then Aaron's like, I can't do it. And it probably the funniest moment of the episode, hey, come on, man, come on, you can't hang up on God like that. I chuckled, but we needed that. That was a good moment to break up the seriousness, but then to have Zachary Taylor take the reins and lead a prayer that took the Sister fan base to church on a Wednesday night like it was revival. Beautiful. DeVal did his thing. He kept the faith, and it was just a great prayer. It really was. I am definitely going to go back and rewatch this scene. It was that good. So that's when Miss Lisa steps up, and, props to Zach for giving that prayer. And this was just a wholesome moment. I really wish, leading up to the birth of these babies, we could have had more good scenes like this between Aaron, Zach, and Miss Lisa. None of that Zach being in his feelings or who is baby daddy number one. These two being brothers. That would have been perfect. But for whatever reason, hey, drama has to be inserted for the sake of it. So they're like, wait, Miss Lisa, I thought they only said 2 in the room. And in pure Miss Lisa fashion, with all the chaos going on at the hospital, she's like, I so graciously told the nurses and doctors that, well, if you don't want any more chaos, you'll let me in the room. Because I gave birth to the woman in there who's about to give birth herself. So yeah, they go in together. I love that. But then we switch over to Andy and Fatima going into the waiting area with Sabrina and Danny. And in a moment I didn't really care for, because it's like pure sister circle one-on-one logic. Dog pile on Danny because she just simply asked, so what's the update? Did they do they know like which baby made it and which one didn't? And then Andy and Sabrina just give her the dirtiest looks. Like, nah, none of that. Like, that was such a bad thing to say. Yeah, don't let your inner thoughts win. I just asked a general question. And look, it wasn't like she asked Karen directly. She asked the two women who are at the moment the most knowledgeable about what's going down. But no, again, Danny points out what everybody's thinking, but then she gets condemned for it. So then the situation kind of shifts over to a happier note with the women, just thanking Fatima for being there for Karen when she needed it the most. And props to Danny, for just taking a moment like, hey, with everything going on, how are you doing? And, Fatima doesn't, beat around the bush saying, look, me and Karen it hasn't always been sunshine and rainbows between us. But I don't want to overstep bounds considering everything that happened. So I just want to be here to support. That's pretty much it. And yeah, it was kind of low key, like, yeah, we had some rough times. We're in a good place now. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And it's no shade to Fatima. It's just I'm thinking about everything from when they first met to where they are now. It's like, yeah, you had rough patches and whatnot, but hey, it wasn't the time or place to address the fact that Karen was the one who usually got shit started. But hey, she could possibly be dying, so it's not the right time to say, hey, it's all on her, whatever. Fatima's just being the bigger person. I'm here for it. So they have a group hug, and then there's a bunch of montages, which, again, I appreciate these flashbacks because, at this point, it's pretty much all the women, well, minus Fatima, thinking about the various Sister Circle group hugs and things like that. They even pull across the Sisters landscape, not just from the last season or two. They even have a couple moments from season 1. And they mention how one baby or two baby or how many ever is like, they still have us. And it's like, yeah, good role models. And I'm like, I'm just going to leave that there. So then they decide to give us a dang fake out when Miss Lisa is like, the girls, disperse the hug. Everybody's all smiles. And then Miss Lisa comes out and what's wrong? And then we go to freaking commercial break. And I'm like, I knew they'd do something like this. So they pretty much leave it ambiguous for a good chunk of the remainder of the episode as to what exactly happened. I mean, obviously that article pretty much spoiled it. So I knew Karen wasn't dead, but they did a decent enough job having the characters recite dialogue. So we don't really know what happened because as soon as we come back from commercial, we have Fatima looking, just down, leaning up against the wall. And then we cut to Zach going to like a back room and kicking over that cart. And then that's when Fatima rushes over. And, he's just a blubbering mess at this point. It's really hard to make out the sentences he's saying. It's like, I was right there. I was holding her. And it's like, I can't believe, like, this ain't fair. This ain't fair. And from there, Danny is in tears in the waiting room, and she spots Dr. Cruz and goes in on him, and then he just looks at her and just bolts off. And we go over to Dr. Vaughn, who, yeah, MVP of the episode at character-wise, because I love the way he kept a professional, patient, understanding demeanor in the midst of everything that went on. So he approaches the women and just gives them like a brief breakdown about how the C-section, these kind of things are just difficult. And given the situation, I want you all to take a breath. And if you want to see Karen, you can. Just make sure you support each other. So they go in the room and it's like, oh my God, is she dead? And then we see her move and no, she's alive. So then that's when Dr. Vaughn mentions how, a burning sensation after a C-section is normal. I'll give you some medicine for it. The pain. And then Danny says something like, yeah, we can all use a little bit of that. And there's a brief blink and you miss a moment where the two of them kind of lock eyes and chuckle at each other. I'm not saying that's foreshadowing a romance there, but it's something I did want to point out. So that's when Dr. Vaughn takes his leave to get those meds. And then, the women have a good... Sorry. You know what? I need to move that arm of my chair. That's what was making that annoying noise. So yeah, the girls talk to Karen about the situation. And I was supposed to be a mother of 2 babies. Hey, you still are. You still are. And I that was a good moment. I like that. And, they just offer their support and whatnot. And Andy mentions how the nurses did say that if you want to hold and see the baby that didn't make it, to get a form of closure, you can do that in order to say goodbye, but it's up to you. It's up to you. And then she asked, like, did any of you see? And they were like, no. If I do this, can we all do it together? And they're like, of course. And I think one of the saddest moments was when Karen was saying, like, when am I supposed to tell my baby about her sister? Like we did everything else together. Like we did right now when we came in to tell you that the baby was gone. And I'm like, dang, that was such a good moment. That was such a good moment. And I mean, this goes back to like the first seasons of the show, where it's like, I don't really see the fans we really don't see the chemistry of why these women are friends. But it's moments like this where it's like, yeah, now I see it. Now I see it. So one of the nurses comes in with the baby, and this was sad. It really was. So Karen holds the baby. Oh, she got my nose. And Danny was like, oh yeah, I got Zach's big forehead too. And that's when they learned that the name is Forever Taylor. And that's the name of the baby. And that's how things end up. But overall, a very emotional episode. Yet again, kudos, hats off to Ebony, DeVal. Just all the actors did their thing. They really did. So the hospital saga is coming to a close, and starting next week, it's about the characters adjusting to the new normal. But with that being said, let me know your thoughts on this episode in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.